back to the channel, everybody. In this lesson we're going to explore the Phrygian Dominant mode. So this is a mode that is very popular and very common in a lot of heavy rock and heavy metal, and has a really cool sound to it as well. So we're going to go through how you use it, and obviously its application as well as some various fingerings and various patterns to get you started with it. So let's get straight to it. So in this first section, I'll show you the construction of E Phrygian Dominant and where it actually comes from as well, because it's actually a mode of the harmonic minor scale. So those of you who have a bit of knowledge of the harmonic minor and have a bit of knowledge of theory, this hopefully should make more sense. So I'll play E Phrygian Dominant as is, and then we'll show you where it actually comes from. So it's this. Play it again. Now where that comes from, like I said, is the harmonic minor scale, A harmonic minor in this case. So how do we arrive at E Phrygian Dominant? So what we do is we take our harmonic minor scale here, and we take this, and what we do instead is we go up 5 notes, so A, B, C, D, E, and we arrive at E here, so the 5th degree of that scale. Now instead of making that the root, the A the root instead, we just make that the root instead. So that's where we get the mode, so in this case E Phrygian Dominant. So that sort of becomes our home base, our root note basically. You'll hear a lot of different names. Phrygian Dominant is the most common one, Phrygian Major is another one, but they're both the same thing. So as you heard in the example in the intro, it's got a very sort of Middle Eastern, very dark sound, very Arabic. It's been described as lots of things, but it has that bright sound as well that I really like. So we'll go through the steps of this as well. So a Phrygian Dominant scale consists of a root, a minor second or flat second, a major third, a perfect fifth, a perfect fourth, perfect fifth, flat sixth, and a flat 7. So again, root, flat second, major third, perfect 4th, perfect 5th, minor 6, and minor 7, and then back to our octave again. So we can arrive at it through using the harmonic minor scale, or what we can do is if you're clued up on your modes of your major scale, we can take a standard Phrygian mode, which goes like this, like that. And then what we do is just take the third note of that and sharpen it, and or basically raise it by half a step. So it goes from this to this. Makes a huge difference. So the standard Phrygian is actually the same thing as Phrygian Dominant, except we've got a minor third instead of a major third. So minor third, major third. So there's a world of difference really, and to be honest, I actually prefer, when I'm doing solos and even trying to write stuff, I do prefer the Phrygian Dominant sound above like Phrygian from the major scale. I just think Phrygian Dominant has a much brighter sound to it, you know. What we want to do as well, once we sort of learn the theory behind it and when we become familiar with its sound, we want to be able to try and get this all over the neck. So we want to be able to try to see it from one end of the neck to the other. So what I might do, because we're in E, which is a very handy key for guitar, we might want to just sort of go like this maybe. So again. So in this section, we're going to explore how you use it over riffs and chord progressions and what have you. How you apply it over chord progression, for example, a very typical one would be like, say, E and F. So you might go, if you're in a metal context, it might be... So that's a very typical progression into E Phrygian Dominant, and a lot of things you would typically think of it, you know, for example, this sort of thing. Your diminished seventh arpeggios are basically sort of Another way you can make this scale stand out even more is the use of chromaticism. So for example, we can take like even a very typical diminished seventh pattern like this within this key, something like that, and then we can sort of just fill in the gap so it ends up sounding like this. Like that maybe. Or maybe you might even make a sequence like this. So I think chromaticism gives it a little bit of edginess, and it breaks out from just using the diminished seventh arpeggio as a general rule of thumb. Lots of other things we could do, you know. These two note chords work pretty well over it as well. Another thing that we can add to our Phrygian Dominant scale is basically the major seventh. So I'll show you what I mean. So if we just take our normal Phrygian Dominant, so basically what we're doing, we're just going to go up as normal, but instead of this note, our D in this case, we're going to make that a D sharp. So it ends up being a major seventh instead, so it sounds like this. So I really like that. I almost prefer it more over the normal Phrygian Dominant in a way, because I think it has more edginess to it, and there's a bit more sort of more of a tension to it. So it ends up in context ends up sounding like it. So that's going to be a root, a flat second, third, fourth, fifth, minor sixth, and then a normal seventh, major seventh in this case, or a sharp seven, depending on how you want to look at it. So it's a really good sound, and I think in combination with all your chromatics and with that, it ends up being a really cool sound. So when you bend up from that, it has it's a very Marty Friedman sort of sound, you know that. In fact, the intro for Rondo Wild Turkey, that very famous Mozart piece, uses the exact same scale. So we've got this, harmonic minor, and then at the end we've got this. It's that. So it's that, it's that D sharp in it. So this is so I've called it Phrygian Dominant with like a major seventh, but I'm sure it's known as a double harmonic major, which has its own set of modes, which I think would be the video would be a bit too short to go into that. But it seems like there's a lot of overlap, and they have a lot of things in common. Like that. So it wouldn't sound very outlandish either, it would sound really, really cool, and kind of gives it a bit more originality as well. Another way we can learn this scale is through more of a chordal approach. So for example, we take that aforementioned EF chord progression. We can sort of find different inversions of this all over the neck. So, we've got E and F here, we've got E and F here, we've got E and F here, and here as well. The good thing about this is it allows you to just take the same shape and you just move it up a semitone, so it's very easy to visualise. Now what we can start doing, once we've got those basic shapes down, is we can start using more different extensions within those shapes. So we've got our E here, we can use the sus4, like that. And then we can take the F and make that fifth, you know, a B. We can make that C a B instead. So altogether we can have this all thing. Yeah. So we can use lots of different inversions like that as well, even on the low end as well. Notice those sound quite evil, especially with a lot of distortion. So we can have it like that. So we get these we can use these inverted chords, and it really, you know, sounds quite huge. So I'm just using those two. So you hear the scale in a bit more of a fuller sense as well. Like you hear all of the notes, you know, how the notes interact together and everything. Well, that about wraps it up. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and do leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Until then, see you next time. Cheers.